Hello, hello. Oh, the meeting is about to start, but we are still doing our tradition of getting to know everyone at the table. So today's question, as you go around the table, is introduce yourself. And the question today is a big one, the kind you get in grad school. Please tell us, what is art to you? And then go around the table. We'll start after that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I ring the bell, stay seated when I ring the bell, okay? I look out at you and there's all this confusion on people's face. We'll have you stand when we bring up our musicians, okay? Is that like choreographically okay to do? There we go. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Seattle, where we're working to build healthy communities. My name is Jan Levy. I am your president for this year, and you don't need to applaud. As we begin today's program, please review and reflect on our land acknowledgement that is up on the screen at the moment. So this Friday, it will be my honor to present a proclamation to the Office of the Consul General of Korea at the Korean National Foundation Day. They're having a reception this Friday. The proclamation gives us the opportunity to extend our thanks to the Consulate General's office, and we had hoped that Consul General Seo was going to be with us today. Unfortunately, she couldn't, but I did, however, want to let you know that we will be presenting this proclamation if any of you are going to that reception on Friday. At this time, please stand and join me in welcoming Jimmy Collins and Burr Stewart to the podium for today's music, followed by Maddie Von Hoff with today's inspiration.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jimmy Collins, and I'll ask you to stand for just a moment while I talk about why we have selected the military service medley as our introductory music today. For those that have served in the Armed Forces of the United States, it's a moment of pride. If you have a child, brother, sister, mother, or father, we'll ask you to think about standing when your service song is played. Burr Stewart and I have the honor of leading the singing today. We start our meetings here at Seattle 4 with music, and the reason is participation gets you centered in the room, and then you're here for the rest of the important meetings. Please have a seat. Each American who has served in the military, whether under the draft or volunteer, they have taken risk for our nation and the common good. We're going to sing 5 military songs. They'll be played in this order: the Coast Guard, the Air Force. I know I have at least one airman here in the audience. The United States Navy, the United States Marine Corps, and we'll finish with the United States Army. If you or a member of your family has served in one of these services or more, please feel free to stand and sing with us. That way we can know which service you have an affiliation with. And then please sit down after you're finished, unless you're moving on to the next song. We want to be able to see who to thank visually for this. And once again, thanks to all veterans. Burr? We'll begin with the United States Coast Guard. We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in thee. Through surf and storm and howling gale, high shall our purpose be. Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame and glory too. To fight, to save, or fight and die. Aye, Coast Guard, we are for you. Thanks to all our coasties. The United States Air Force. Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, zooming to meet our thunder. At them now, give them the gun. Down we dive, spouting our flame from under, off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame or go down in flame. Hey, nothing will stop the U.S. Air Force. Thank you, airmen and family members. The United States Navy is 250 years old this year. Anchors aweigh, my boys, anchor away. Farewell to foreign shores, we sail at break of day. Hey, 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 through our last night ashore, drink to the foam. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home. Thank you, sailors. The United States Marines, also 250 years old this year. How many years? 250. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land, and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine. And thank you, Marines and family members. And now for the U.S. Army, also 250 years old this year. First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the Army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the Army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the Army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong, for where'er we go, you will always know that the Army goes rolling along. Thank you, soldiers' families, all those who have served, and special thanks to Bert and Linda from the Music Committee.
Thanks to Jimmy and Burr and Linda for our music. And Maddie, are you ready for our inspiration? Come on up.
Hi everyone, my name is Maddie Von Hoff, and I am excited to be up here today to talk a little bit about what public broadcasting gave me. As a kid born in the 90s, I am the last generation to be raised on ad-free public television. And when Vicki said everyone would laugh at that. And when I say raised, I mean raised. Public television often pulled that afternoon shift for my parents, especially after my brothers came along. And for those of you who were born in the 90s or maybe before, you know that we did not have algorithms or streaming queues or 100 channels. What we got on TV was what we got, and we learned to be grateful for it, which I think is a pretty good life lesson, or at least that's the life lesson my mom told me I should take away from it. I owe a lot to public broadcasting. Public programs gave me a love of reading I still carry with me to this day, thanks to reading legends like LeVar Burton and Wishbone. I learned curiosity and a science mindset from Bill Nye, filmed right here in Seattle, who made science explode on screen. I learned to cook from my mom and Julia Child. And I learned maybe Arthur had it right all along, that if you can learn to work and play and get along with each other, then that's a pretty wonderful day. Public broadcasting programs gave us more than just shows. They helped grow our values. Public broadcasting shaped our lives, and in return, our daily struggles, our diversity of perspectives, our lived experiences, and our communities shaped and pushed public broadcasting right back. It reflected who we were and who we wanted to become. And I can say I was pretty lucky to grow up with a big bird, a scientist, and a storyteller in my corner. Today as Rotarians, we carry that same mission-driven spirit to be of service, to help educate and inform, and to be a good neighbor to Seattle's downtown. Public broadcasting reminds us that when we make learning and information and connection freely available, we strengthen the fabric of our society. And while the future of public broadcasting is uncertain, and I look forward to hearing from our distinguished guests today, I end with a reminder that the legacy of public broadcasting is already in this room, and it is seated at these tables, and it is standing at this podium. Once upon a time, I was a future generation being shaped by public broadcasting programs. And today, as you listen to our program, I invite you to consider what stories this generation will need to hear today to shape their futures tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Maddie, for that wonderful inspiration. I also want to thank Tracy Brown and David Froome and Charmaine Vasquez for serving as our greeters today, and Dan Mead-Smith for serving as our meeting reporter. Before I introduce our guests and begin our short program, I wanted to make sure you all received my President's Update earlier this week. If you haven't seen it, please look for it in your email. It contains the result of our members' survey, in which you once again ranked revitalizing downtown, education and literacy, and food insecurity as your top 3 priorities for funding this year. There are also some comments about our membership numbers. Those are continuing to drop a little bit, even as we are bringing in new members. So please remember, it's going to take all of us to grow our club. And finally, the survey talks about the desire in this room for much more in the way of networking opportunities. Stephen Morse is planning our next networking event, which will be right here in this hotel, just a happy hour next Wednesday evening. Watch for more networking opportunities as the year goes on. At our last meeting, we drew some names for prizes from people who have pledged or donated to SRSF. It turns out we have one more space available for the wine tasting. So David is going to come back and we're going to draw one more name for our wine tasting. Eye candy. Okay. Okay, here we go. 326756. Okay, Joanne. Great. We do have some guests and visiting Rotarians today. Will you all please stand so we can welcome you? I can't read all of those names or we'll be here forever. Please stand if you're a guest. Welcome to the Rotary Club. We're so glad to have you. And we have a special guest here from Germany, from the Rotary Club of Thierry. At this time, it's my honor to welcome our very own District Governor, Jeff Borak, to the podium. As you know, Rotary is much bigger than just our club, and Jeff is here to share a little bit about what's going on at the district. He loves applause.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you, fellow Rotarians. I don't think I can contain myself behind the podium. So I want to start off by saying that I'm really honored to be able to represent the district to you and also be empathetic, because I remember sitting out in the audience 10 years ago going, what is the district and what is all that about? So I'm going to try and quickly go through some information to bring you all up to speed. So who recognizes the image on the left? Together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. That's what I opened every meeting as your president for the 2020-2021 year. And I will go down in history as the only past president of Seattle 4 who never physically attended any of my meetings. They were all on Zoom. But there's another definition of Rotary up on this slide. It's in the upper right, talking about a network of more than 1.2 million people of action. But there's a problem in that upper right definition. Who can spot that problem for me? That's worth a gold star right there. No, the problem is Who heard the term or the number 1.2 million Rotarians 10 years ago? Raise your hand. Who heard that number 2 decades ago? Keep your hand up. Rotary needs to grow, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But again, to put this in context, I really like this slide because it talks about that 1.2 million number, but clubs are really the heart of what Rotary is all about. I'm very honored. I guess I did okay as your past president because they came back and asked me to be district governor. When you make that commitment, it's a 4-year commitment, and you go through a progression to come up to speed. But clubs are where the action is. And I'm here to serve not just my home club, but the other 49 clubs in the district. And I'm on the road. I've visited about 18 clubs now. I'll be making 3 more club visits this week. Districts. We're in 50-30 district, and our district is about everything you can see from the top of the Space Needle. So it goes up to Edmonds, it goes south down to Enumclaw, it goes to Vashon in the west, and it goes back to Snoqualmie area. So districts vary in size and scope, but then they report up to zones. Who can tell me what zone we happen to be in? That's the right answer, Kathy. Of course, that's a past district governor giving us that answer. So the other thing I'll say real quick, and I won't take you through this because I want to stay on time, but almost 250,000 Rotaractors. And Rotaractors are on campus. Is Julie here today? Yay, Julie. Julie is one of our ERLs. Who can tell me what an ERL is? Not Kathy. It's a emerging Rotary leader. So I, as the district governor, was proud to nominate Julie, Stacy Thorkison, and Stephen Morris, who I don't think is here today. Oh, where are you, Stephen? Wave your hand. Those 3 got to travel to the recent zone event in Albuquerque, and I'll talk a little bit about that as I go through. This is a slide from the recent Rotary International Conference that Jan was able to attend. And talk to Jan about this next time you catch her in the hallway, because I think it was really a life-changing experience for Jan. At this district conference, I was proud to meet the new incoming president, the current president, Francesco, from Italy. You can see a picture with Stacy and I. We ambushed him outside the Big West Breakfast up in Calgary. But it was really a great experience. And so if you get a chance to either visit a district conference or a zone conference or even an international conference, the next one is going to be in Taipei and 26. And I'll talk a little bit more about that too. But you'll get a copy of these slides. You'll see a keynote link. And then below that, quick show of hands. Who's worried about climate change in this audience? I grew up in the Northwest. Summer was a weekend in August. And now we get consistent 90-degree days. There's a wonderful talk by a very articulate subject matter expert, 4-way tests and climate change. I really encourage you to check that replay out. Here's some numbers. Jan alluded to this, but when I first started to get involved at the zones level 10 years ago, I went there thinking, where's the sense of panic? Because when I joined this club in 2000, our number was still in the high 700s. And I've watched our number just slowly tick down for the last 2 decades. And there's a lot of reasons for that. 2 working families that became necessary over the last 2 decades. But who has Netflix? Quick show of hands. Just about everybody. This is your homework assignment. Mental note or write it down. Search Join or Die, because it's a new documentary that was developed just in the last year. Does anyone remember the book Bowling Alone from a couple of decades ago? Putnam talked about this fact that people were not getting civically engaged. And why was that? And so they went back and re-interviewed Putnam for this documentary. And the good news is that people want to get civically engaged again. And I'm convinced, and I'm really passionate about the fact that some civic organization is going to capture this new thirst for civic engagement. And it really should be Rotary. Who knows what a bell-shaped curve is? age trends on the right there, that's not a bell-shaped curve. I'm approaching the red bar demographic. That's the highest demographic we've got. There's nothing wrong with older Rotarians. I'm one, but we need more young people involved with Rotary. This is a great factual input from RI up in Chicago. They spent money, did focus group studies. These are the top 5 reasons people join Rotary. And I'm sharing this with you because it's vitally important that you understand, and when you talk to a prospective member about why they might be interested, don't just tell them we're a great service organization, which is true, but tell them it's very important to know what the person's interest is. These are my 5 top priorities: growing membership, having consistent plans. We have a public image campaign committee that's working in the district. Ask me about that. You should drop in. We have this RISE program. How many RISE graduates do we have in the audience? We have a handful. It's a great way to help develop future leaders. And then lastly, the district conference. Who's heard about the district conference in Walla Walla? We'll talk about that too, but I'm getting towards the end of my time, so I'm going to share just one last anecdote about this issue of being open-minded about thinking about bringing someone into Rotary. About a year ago, past President John Bridge asked me to substitute. Oops, knew I shouldn't have taken that out, but it's now adjusted for you. I looked at the agenda for that day a year ago, and the speaker was the head of vet medicine at WSU. And I thought, oh my gosh, this woman's amazing. And who knows, it's harder to be an animal doctor than a people doctor, for sure. And then all of a sudden, the light bulb went on in the back of my head. And I remembered, wait a minute, my sister's daughter's daughter, my grandniece, she's volunteering in an animal shelter down in the Auburn area. She's working part-time at a vet clinic. I should invite her to come. Well, I don't know. She's kind of shy. She doesn't really like to be the center of attention. But I said, what the heck, I'm going to invite her anyway. So I'm going to read you just a couple of texts of that experience I had. So this was September 18th, and I said, hey, please arrive on time. It should be a great experience. Dress as business casual. Okay, sounds good. She came on the 18th. She had an amazing experience. A couple of you Rotarians took care of her when I was up doing my dog and pony. And at the end of the event, she came up and spoke with this woman. The woman was very kind and generous of her time. And my niece explained that she was going to go to Central Washington University for her first 2 years and then hoped to transfer. 5 days later, I got this note from her. I just got in contact with the Rotary Club here in Ellensburg. They were doing an involvement fair, and Rotary was one of the booths. And I said, super, they should have a Rotaract Club on the campus. You should check it out. Let me know if you need some help. On October 30th, I got this text. I was just told that I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Central Washington University. No, not the town, but the college, because I've been showing up and trying to get things organized, and I could go on, but I can just tell you that in April, I got this last text that I will read briefly. I know. I have some pretty exciting news from Rotaract. I've been planning to send care packages to women in need in Malawi, Africa. I went to the morning Rotary today asking for $500 for all the supplies and shipping. I ended up raising over $1,400, and that's not even counting the credit card donations. So you just never know when you're going to inspire someone when you invite them to get involved with Rotary. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm looking forward to the Walla Walla Conference, and I hope some of you will be coming. I know some of you are.
We have over 150 registered.
You hear that? Over 150 registered. Today we're beginning our exploration of our next element of the healthy community, arts and culture. For those of you who know me, it won't surprise you to know that this is my very favorite element. Today's program invites us to take a closer look at the future of public broadcasting, a cultural touchstone and critical community collaboration. At a time when federal funding for public media is facing major cuts, local stations are being asked to do more with less while still upholding their mission to educate, inform, and inspire us. Our panelists are going to give us some insight into how the world of public broadcasting is evolving and changing in this landscape and why it remains essential to the health of our civic life. Moderating the discussion will be our own club member, Matt Albertson. Matt is the Senior Philanthropy Officer at KUOW, and he believes in creating positive social change by ensuring that nonprofits have the resources needed to pursue their missions. Matt graduated from the University of Washington, and of course, he's a Leadership Tomorrow graduate. He served on the boards of the Bothell Parks Foundation and the Seattle Rotary Service Foundation. Please welcome Matt to the podium, and he will introduce our panel.
Excellent. Well, good afternoon. For anybody who I haven't met in this room, I'm Matt Albertson, and it is a pleasure to be here with three local leaders who are shaping what public media looks like today and in the future. For a lot of us, public media is part of our civic DNA. It's how we stay informed, inspired, sometimes enraged, but most of all connected to diverse communities and varying perspectives, things we might not encounter in our day-to-day lives. But the landscape is shifting very quickly. It's change in funding, change in technology, competition for attention, and more. So today we have about 30 minutes to learn how public media is navigating that change and continuing to educate and entertain listeners, viewers, and readers. So our panelists today, starting at the end, Rob Dunlop, President and Chief Executive Officer of Cascade PBS, serving Western and Central Washington and British Columbia. Prior to joining, he was the Executive Vice President of Fisher Communications until its sale in 2013. Earlier, Rob was a media consultant, a program director, a news producer, a news anchor at various media operations. He's currently a chair of American Public Television, a director of media management, and a partner at Bravo Spirits, which is a James Beard-nominated craft distillery in Woodinville. He has a BA in organizational psychology from The Ohio State University and an MBA from the Foster School of Business at the University of Washington. Next up, David Fisher, President and General Manager of KNKX Public Radio. Prior to joining there in 2024, he served as the CEO of the Tacoma Arts Live for nearly 18 years. He's previously served many years as the CEO at the Luther Burbank Center in Santa Rosa, California, where he helped lead development of a new Sonoma County hospital. His 35 years in nonprofit service includes work as a professional actor, TV news reporter, producer, studio team member, and an urban planning architect under Lawrence Halperin. He was also the board president of various nonprofits, including Western Arts Alliance, Arts Network of Washington State, and Cultural Access Washington, the latter which secured state legislation that allows communities to tax themselves in support of arts, science, and culture, which has been adopted and deployed in King, Pierce, and Thurston counties. He co-led the first successful effort and campaign in Tacoma, Washington for this cultural funding. And finally, Tina Palmatuan, the President and Chief Executive Officer of KUOW. She spent over 20 years in journalism as a producer, editor, educator, and public media leader. She previously led stations in San Francisco and St. Louis. Her trajectory in leadership began at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism in New York, where she founded its audio journalism program. And she started her career in media as an intern at National Public Radio, where she now sits on their board of directors. So without further ado, let's address the likely elephant in the room. For each of you, sort of going down the line here, how has the loss of funding from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting impacted your organization? Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate that. And I got to learn a little bit more about Rob and David. And I've sat on panels before, so that was really enlightening and lovely. But first of all, thank you for inviting us to be here at the Rotary Club of Seattle. I want to say that my grandfather was a Rotarian in the Philippines, and I didn't know that much about the organization until that lovely presentation that we just heard. So thank you. And so to answer Matt's question around KUOW, so I just started at KUOW at the end of July. I'm just getting to know the organization. During this incredible firestorm, right, of intensity around the landscape that we are living in, and in a profession and industry that I've dedicated my whole life to, right, public media, and that's true in different ways for Rob and David. And I would say at KUOW, there was the funding gap, right, that is over $1 million. You probably read in various places, including the New York Times, that we were able to close that gap for this year, right, with an emergency fundraising drive. That is thanks to all of you and beyond, right, the listenership and membership of KUOW, which is strong. Seattle is a city that is very strong in its public media engagement and membership. That is not true across the country, but to the same level. I will say at KUOW, we are very lucky to have this community, but there is also, there's the financial impact, and then there is the psychological and emotional impact that reverberates from our staff outwards towards the community. And this beautiful thing, right, that we have grown up to love, and not everybody engages with it, but we capture a lot of hearts and minds. People like Maddie, who was just speaking about her formative years and how it crafted her way of thinking and perspective, there was this sudden emotional and psychological concern that we could lose that. And that freaks people out, because it should freak people out. But you must know too, and I'm here to also assure you, that plenty of us have been thinking about this for much longer than June 12th. Okay? That was a moment. There were moments before that. There was the EO on May 2nd. I was in DC when that happened. So there is a lot of really bright and wonderful leadership at NPR, our national organizations, at our local organizations right in front of you, but all across the country for NPR and our 246 member stations who have been thinking about this problem for much longer than this year or last year. And what I would like to say is that I am hoping that in this critical moment we take this challenge, dig deep, and see the things that have been hard for us and the ways in which we could be doing things better, and we emerge brighter, able to reflect even more of America than we have before, and able to engage even more Seattleites, more Americans than we have in our past. So has it impacted KUOW? Absolutely. In a financial way, right? And we could always love your support, but also in an emotional and psychological way. And part of my leadership coming in is to lead not just us through this time of financial crisis, you might say, but also to lead us through an emotional space where these very incredible dedicated journalists and people who support journalism can come through to the other side because they are sticking true to the integrity and values of public media.
I, too, would like to share my thanks to having you invite us here today. I am so blessed to have wonderful peers, and I'm getting to know them. I'm about a year into my tenure. About a third of the way through that year, the U.S. Congress hosted a session entitled The Anti-American Airwaves. And I was stunned to realize they were talking about the business that I represent. Wait, you can't possibly be talking about us, and yet they were. And they have worked very diligently to take away the funding under the guise, the idea that, well, there's plenty of news sources out there. You don't need to be funded by the American people. missing the fact that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting was dedicated to objectivity, to independence from political influence, and from a responsibility for participating in a paywall. And so one of the fabulous things about public media is that we are responsible to the public, not to politicians, not to businesses, and people can participate with us without putting out funding. Now, the good news is we inspire people to give. And that has certainly happened for all of us with people responding to the federal rescission and elimination of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This is about 7% of KNKX's budget, which doesn't sound like a lot until you realize that we all operate on a thin, did I say thin? Margin of efficiency, and our staff wears many hats. So 7% hurts. We put a call out to our donors asking them to step up to become monthly donors because we're losing sustainable funding. We need to replace it with sustainable funding. And they have stepped up, and we are nearly closed on that gap with new monthly donors, which is a fantastic place to be. And so we're really grateful for that. And I'll just say, it has galvanized our listeners, but it's also galvanized our staff. And we keep this phrase in the back of our minds. It is from Maria Ressa, who's a former Nobel Peace Prize winner. And she said, first, they came for the journalists, and then we don't know what happened. And that is not the world we want to live in. So, thanks.
So thank you as well for the opportunity to be here, and I never miss an opportunity to thank this club for what it did for Cascade PBS 40 years ago when we were seeking to establish ourselves as an independent nonprofit media organization. So thank you to all of you for the support that this club has provided to Cascade PBS for many, many decades. I would share everything that Tina and David have shared with you as well. I think that if crisis is the mother of invention, we're all doing a lot of inventing right now. As we sort of think about our industry at a crossroads and we think about what this means in this moment in time and what this will mean in the years ahead. And I think that we're really kind of at the tip of the iceberg in terms of understanding exactly how the impact of the loss of federal funding will shape each of our organizations in different ways. For us, we lost about $3.5 million immediately in our fiscal year 2026 budget, which we're in right now. We are incredibly fortunate to be part of an amazing community that, like for KUOW and KNKX, has rallied to help support and close the gap on that funding. It will be interesting to see, I think, for all of us, how much of that is temporary, emergency level funding, kind of like in a natural disaster when something happens. Communities are great at coming together and really trying to help people in those crises moments. How much of that will stick around over the long term? And I think we're all sort of grateful and tentative at the same time. I would say that that's not the case for every part of the public broadcasting system, and that's where some of the greatest concern right now rests, is that there are a lot of rural communities that simply don't have the large population base, that don't have the local sponsor support, that may not have the foundations that are able to help those public radio and public television stations that may be the only media organizations serving those areas to stay on the air. And so I think the immediate concern we all have is for our colleagues in more rural areas of the country to make sure that those communities also have access to quality educational and news programming and arts in those areas where we may not cover today. So very grateful to everything that this community has done for us, and I think there is a lot for us to work through. We have looked at this as a strategic challenge brought about by a financial pressure. So we've got this financial pressure that's impacted us, and we are now in turn pivoting strategically in order to address now what will be a new normal of funding, whatever that level might be, and we're not sure we know exactly what that is yet.
Well, thank you, all three of you. I have one question for each of the panelists. The others can weigh in on as well. So I invite you to start thinking of your own questions as well. I'm hoping we'll have time for the audience Q&A. Rob, today anyone can be a publisher and the people have endless content choices. From your vantage point, what is the unique value that public media must deliver to stay relevant, especially on a local level?
Well, I would love to just take Maddie's comments and replay those for all of you, because she articulated beautifully what it is that we do in public broadcasting. Whether it's on public radio or public television, we each bring a certain mission to our communities. We are for and about the communities that we serve, and we express that often in very different ways. But we also bring forward programming and content and experiences that generally our commercial media colleagues don't do, and largely because the business model of commercial doesn't necessarily comport with the business model of public. And so when David talked about public, it is about the public to whom we are accountable. And so we think very deeply about how it is we build healthier communities, and about how we can educate them with the arts, how we can educate them through civic conversation, through early childhood education work. So these are things that are critical services provided to communities throughout. And a lot of people don't recognize quite how much public broadcasting does in the public safety space. We are a very critical connection to our community around public safety. And what that means is that we are the backbone, essentially, that feeds emergency alerting information to not only all of you through our broadcast towers, but also to all the cell companies. So if you're walking around with a cell phone and that's the primary way in which you might receive critical public service information about a crisis that might be hitting the country or hitting our region, that's how you'll find out about it, and you'll find out about it through public broadcasting. So it is public broadcasting that really is woven into so many dynamics of our community that many people don't necessarily notice because it's a behind the scenes element. But we each play really critical roles and aspects of our mission that we think, and particularly in an era of AI, becomes incredibly important as we think about the trust and credibility that goes with the work that we do.
David, Tina, anything to add on strong opportunities for public media?
Add to that to say that I like the way you framed the question, because you emphasize the word local. And I think we have a responsibility to redouble our efforts in local coverage. And I think the people of the United States are in the midst of living through some cognitive dissonance, right? On the one hand, we are all completely addicted to national news feeds, wherever we get them from. Hopefully you get them from NPR and PBS. And we have that addiction. At the same time, we are each yearning for more information about our community. What's going on here? What are our elected officials doing? How can we stay more engaged? What are the opportunities for us to stay as active, civic, engaged citizens and residents, right? Well, public media recently led a survey testing, they called it the RUN survey, researching unmet needs. Number one on that list is more public reporting, more public accountability. And so I think we are all trying to figure that out and trying to figure out how to elevate that and meet that expectation. In KNKX's case, we have the largest public radio broadcast reach in Western Washington. So that's a little tricky for us because, yes, we're very focused on the central Puget Sound, but we also feel a responsibility to Port Angeles, to Centralia, to Vancouver, Washington, and even those quirky folks up in BC. We have a responsibility to, I hope I didn't insult any Canadians there. We have a responsibility to be relevant across that broad reach. And so we have to think creatively. We all three participate in partnerships. So we have a terrific partnership with KUOW where we co-fund a state reporter, state media and state government reporter. And we have a wonderful partnership with Cascade PBS through the Washington State University's Murrow Fellowship Program. We share a fellow together. So if we're going to meet this need, we have to be thinking creatively. We have to be thinking about deepening partnerships and how we extend all of that work.
Anything you want to add?
I'll add just two things quickly because I know you've got questions for us. I would say local political reporting, very, very important, and something that we already have in place in our public radio stations across the country, local public radio. Local investigative reporting, very, very important. And then I'm going to throw in a third, which is maybe a little more unusual. I think in this moment what we can do is help educate folks around how media is made. Because I saw this happening in the early aughts as I was teaching journalism school, that there was a confusion around news and information and the discipline of journalism and the practices and standards that we hold to that makes it journalism versus, an influencer's account of a situation, an editorial, and there is actual confusion, and it doesn't necessarily happen in our schools, that we are teaching media studies at an early enough age so that when people come through, right, again, the example of Maddie and seeing PBS very early on, like how this thing is made. So that to me is potentially an opportunity that public radio can and public media can take in this moment.
All right, and I just got the notice we are running low on time, so no, it's great. This has been a great conversation so far. Nicole, do you want to jump into some audience questions?
So if you don't have questions, he's got more. So this is your chance. And I have to run in heels. Woo. Oh, I can do it. All right. There we go. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Dorothy Bullitt, and I would like to ask you a question, Mr. Dunlap, about the gift that Seattle Rotary made to KCTS to create a building. So it was one of our major gifts, and it's my understanding that building was sold. Is that correct?
We don't own it any longer.
Okay.
I'll put it that way.
Okay, and so I suspect that some longtime members of the club would be very interested in knowing how those funds have been spent.
Sure.
And if there's any Rotary legacy still present at KCTS. Anyway, just interested in how the funds were spent.
Yeah, great. Appreciate the question. So I was careful in my response to you because it wasn't actually sold. So what occurred back in the early 1980s as KCTS was separating from the University of Washington to become an independent community licensee, we relocated to a piece of property at the corner of 5th and Mercer, in which we then raised funds at that time to build a building that is still located on that piece of property. It was a 40-year lease with the city of Seattle, but KCTS raised the money. Rotary, a significant part, I think Rotary raised at least a third of the money that we used to build that building. And we lived there successfully for almost 40 years. The city of Seattle was unwilling to renew our land lease, and we were obligated to find a new home and leave that property. Unfortunately, the way that lease was written, we were not permitted to actually sell the building. So essentially, the city of Seattle took the building as a part of the sunset of the land lease. So we more or less turned the keys over to the city, and they now own that piece of property. They do intend to demolish the building at some point. I think they're waiting to get through 2026 World Cup, and I think there's still quite a bit of discussion about what they actually want to do on that piece of property. But through, I think it was my second day on the job in 2013, I learned that, oh, by the way, you're going to have to move. And so we spent about 10 years really negotiating with the city to try to get some remuneration for the building. We were unsuccessful at that. Mayor Harrell was actually helpful with us in getting some offsets to our lease payments to the city for the land lease in advance of our departure, but we sadly moved from that building and received no money for it.
Hi there, Mark Wright. I started my journalism career at Northwest Public Radio, then Spokane Public Radio, Boise Public Radio. The thing that that concerns me most in the media landscape today is that we live literally in a post-fact world. We have a sizable part of our country and politicians that just don't believe stuff, like the results of an election. So my question is, how do we fight that? Because facts don't seem to matter to those people. And it's really scary when they don't need facts to come up with their opinions. So I'd love a brief comment from each of you.
I think we probably each have a different response to that. Mine is we got to start local, because the federal alternative facts that are being shared are seeping down into the local, and I think we have to push back on it in the intimate relationship that we have here to push facts forward through a relationship of intimacy and trust. And if we can push it back out, then I think we have a fighting chance.
I'll take that one. I have a couple different thoughts here. So I was talking about media studies before, so there is that long trajectory, right, of educating people about how media is made and why facts matter. But then there's also, right now, NPR, for instance, has a very controversial lawsuit with CPB, right? And NPR's, the way that NPR is positioning this is really as a First Amendment issue, right? Free speech. And so there's pushback there that we're seeing. So there is that. And then I think the other piece is really like, meet the people who you think don't agree with you. I do really believe that that is also at the heart of this. Matt had a question for me that we probably won't get to, that is about leading stations in a red state, right? Public media organizations. I came from St. Louis, Missouri, a red state, blue city, red state. And I think for me, the reason I went to St. Louis and Missouri had a lot to do with the fact that I had lived a coastal life through my whole career. And as a journalist, I was curious. And it did not meet, I mean, it was very much a public media town in the same way that Seattle might be a public media town. But I did have board members and others who came to me and said, hey, I believe this and that makes me outside of public media. And I said, no. Public media is about reflecting the entirety of American life and society. Now, the question of journalism and facts, that's a hard line, right? Because our currency is facts. Our currency is news and information and journalism. So yeah, we have to also push back there. So I will say that right now, St. Louis is running something called the Mini J School, and it has a lot to do with this media studies piece. So I would say on a personal level, meet the people who you think you don't agree with, because I promise you, there is a Venn diagram of the way in which your lives overlap and the things that you care about.
I would agree with that. I think bridging divides critically important. I think that's a role public media can play really well, because we are for and about the public, and we are beholden and accountable to the public. And so I think being very focused on bridging divides, bringing people together to learn again how to actually listen and talk to one another who may not agree with you on the same issues. I also think media literacy is going to become a significant issue, if not already, because we all have a news diet, and it's been very easy in this world to get very tribal and to drill down on your choir, so to speak, and spend all of your time listening to messages that reinforce what you think. And with AI and with everyone being a publisher these days, media literacy and helping communities understand how to parse what is out there and to separate fact from fiction is going to become a role that, again, I think public media can play a really valuable role in.
Thank you all. Thank you to all of you. As a thanks for your participation today, the Seattle Rotary Service Foundation, our club's foundation, has provided 600 servings of healthy produce to those in need through Harvest Against Hunger in your names. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to all of you who have donated or pledged to SRSF so we can provide this generous support. And I'll just pass these down. Your names are on them. Yes. Well. Okay. And I'm not going to get back up on this stool because it's too much trouble. Thank you again to REB Enterprises and Carl Benke. I saw you here somewhere back there for your meeting support this year. I also want to thank Bloodworks Northwest and the Westland Morse Group and Baird Private Wealth Management for their meeting support. If I were to complete the phrase you were given at the beginning of this program, art is, I would say art is a lifesaver. For me, without the arts, I don't know if I would have survived. This month, I want to encourage all of you to visit an art exhibit, go to a cultural event, see a performance. And in addition to donating to SRSF, please make a contribution to your favorite public media outlet. Nicole, do we have any quick announcements? I know. We're running a little late, so.
I thought you were cutting me, so I was like, oh.
No.
Okay. Oh, okay. So our two announcements is one, this Friday, John Steckler, next year's president, WAVE, will be hosting One Accord Partners in Kirkland. It will be for Seattle Rotary Club members who want to grow their business in a thoughtful and strategic approach. And it's $250. The registration cost will be donated directly to SRSF for those that want to sign up. See John. Again, he's right there. And then we also mentioned already that next Wednesday, November 12th, there will be an evening event that is totally free at this hotel from 5 to 7. And we'd love for you to attend. It's networking and easy to come because it's free.
Thanks, Nicole. You know, she keeps me sane every month. Thank you all for being here today. I'm looking forward to seeing you all next Wednesday night. And in 2 weeks, we're going to hear from the Seattle Theater Group and the Fifth Avenue Theater about all of the recent theater consolidations in our town and what's going on. That should be a great program. We are adjourned.